Welcome to the Retirement Wealth Podcast. We're so glad you're joining us today.
Absolutely. It's great to be here, Emily. You know, one of the biggest concerns folks have as they approach retirement is how to create that reliable income they can count on, right?
Exactly. It's a huge topic. Many people wonder, how do I make sure my savings last throughout retirement? We're diving into that today.
We'll cover strategies for generating guaranteed income, the importance of Social Security, and how to think about your investments as you transition into this new phase of life.
And we'll also touch on some common pitfalls to avoid, like underestimating expenses or not planning for healthcare costs.
Yeah, those can really sneak up on you if you're not careful.
So whether you're already retired or just starting to think about it, we've got insights and tips that can help you make informed decisions.
And remember, planning for retirement isn't just about the numbers. It's about ensuring you have the lifestyle you want too.
Absolutely. Let's jump into our first point, how to create that guaranteed income stream to give you peace of mind during your retirement years.
Right. So the first thing to consider is your sources of income. So Emily, as we dive into why guaranteed income in retirement is so crucial right now, we really have to consider the broader economic landscape.
Absolutely, David. I think a lot of folks are feeling the pinch with inflation lately, right? It's like the cost of everything keeps creeping up. Groceries, healthcare, even travel.
Yeah, and that's a big one. I mean, if you think about it, retirees often live on fixed incomes, so inflation can really erode their purchasing power over time. Just a few years ago, I had a client, let's call him Bob, who planned to travel more in retirement. But with rising costs, he found that his budget just wasn't stretching as far as he thought it would.
That's a great example. And it's not just about everyday expenses, right? Healthcare costs are rising too, and they can be a huge part of a retiree's budget.
Exactly. I had another client, Susan, who was shocked when she realized how much her Medicare premiums increased, along with out-of-pocket expenses for medications. She had to adjust her spending plans just to accommodate those rising healthcare costs.
Right, and then there's the whole market volatility thing too. With the stock market being as unpredictable as it is, a lot of people are worried about their investments.
Yes, and that uncertainty can really shake even the most confident retiree. I remember a couple, Tom and Linda, who were counting on their investments to fund their retirement. When the market took a dip, they felt their retirement dreams slipping away. It was stressful for them, and for a lot of others too.
So true. It's like they had to make some tough choices, maybe delaying their travel plans or even considering part-time work just to feel secure.
Exactly, and it leads to that emotional side of financial security, which is so important. Many retirees want peace of mind, knowing they can cover their bills without worrying about the next market downturn or inflation spike.
Yeah, and I think that's where guaranteed income comes in. It offers that sense of stability, doesn't it?
It does. When you have guaranteed income, like from annuities or pensions, it acts like a safety net. For instance, if someone has a guaranteed income stream, they might feel more comfortable letting their investments ride the market waves because they know they're covered for their basic expenses.
And it's not just about covering expenses either. It's also about legacy planning. People want to leave something behind for their children or grandchildren, right?
Absolutely. I had a client named Mark who was really invested in leaving a legacy. He wanted to ensure that his kids would have something to fall back on, especially with the rising costs of education and housing. By focusing on guaranteed income, he could secure his own lifestyle while still planning for his family's future.
I love that perspective, David. It's like balancing the here and now with the future. And of course, we can't forget about Social Security changes.
Right. Social Security benefits are a big part of most people's retirement plans. But with all the discussions about its long-term viability, it's important to have a backup plan.
For sure. I know some people are counting on Social Security as their main source of income, which can be risky.
Yes, and it's something I often talk about with clients. If we rely solely on Social Security, we might be in for a surprise down the road, especially if benefits get reduced. So having that guaranteed income can really help fill those gaps.
And speaking of gaps, we've talked about the current economic trends and how they impact retirees. What about tax efficiency?
Oh, that's a huge factor. With potential changes in tax laws, retirees often overlook the impact of taxes on their income streams. If they're drawing money from tax-inefficient sources, they could lose a significant portion to taxes.
Right. It's like they think they're set, but then they realize their net income isn't what they expected. It can be a real wake-up call.
Exactly. That's why incorporating tax-efficient strategies can make a big difference in how far their retirement savings go.
So, David, it sounds like guaranteed income can really address many of these concerns and help create a more secure retirement plan.
That's right, Emily. It's about building a robust strategy that considers all these factors: market volatility, inflation, taxes, and even the emotional side of financial security.
I think it's time we dive into some core strategies for creating that guaranteed income in retirement.
So, let's dive into some core strategies that can really help create that guaranteed income in retirement, right?
Yeah, definitely. So, where do you think we should start?
Well, let's talk about the basics first. Setting up a solid foundation with things like stocks and bonds. A common rule of thumb is the 70-30 portfolio, right?
Right. So that would mean like 70% in stocks and 30% in bonds?
Exactly. And that mix can really help balance growth and stability. Stocks can provide that growth potential, while bonds tend to be more stable, offering fixed income.
So if someone is in their 50s or 60s, they might want to lean a bit more towards bonds as they get closer to retirement.
Yes, that's a good point. Typically, you might adjust that ratio as you age. Maybe even consider a 60-40 or 50-50 as you get closer to your retirement date.
And what about tax-advantaged accounts?
Oh, those are crucial. You've got your 401ks and IRAs. They allow your investments to grow tax-deferred. With a traditional 401k, you're not paying taxes until you withdraw funds, which can be a big advantage.
Right, and then there's the Roth IRA, which is a bit different, right?
Exactly. With a Roth, you pay taxes on the money before you put it in, but then your withdrawals in retirement are tax-free, which can be incredibly beneficial if you expect to be in a higher tax bracket later on.
So it's kind of like a tax-free growth engine.
Yes. And speaking of tax advantages, let's not forget about how critical it is to optimize Social Security.
Oh, that's a big one. I hear a lot of people wonder when the best time to claim Social Security is.
Right, and it can have a huge impact on your overall income. If you take it early, say at 62, your monthly benefit is reduced. But if you wait until 70, your benefit can increase by about 8% for each year you delay.
So that could make a significant difference.
Absolutely. For example, if your full retirement benefit is $2,000 a month, waiting until 70 could get you around $2, $640 a month.
Wow, that's a big jump.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to have a strategy around when to claim. You really want to look at your health, your financial situation, and even your goals.
And then there's the withdrawal strategies.
Right. The 4% rule is a classic approach, suggesting you withdraw 4% of your retirement savings each year.
So if you have $1 million saved, that's about $40,000 a year?
Exactly. But it's worth noting that this rule was based on historical data and market conditions. In today's environment, some experts suggest being a bit more conservative, maybe starting with 3.5%.
And that's to account for market volatility and longer life expectancies, right?
Exactly. It's all about ensuring your money lasts throughout your retirement. Another strategy worth considering is the bucket strategy.
What's that about?
Well, it involves dividing your assets into different buckets based on when you'll need the money. For example, you might have a short-term bucket for the next few years, like cash or short-term bonds, a medium-term bucket for income in the next 5 to 10 years, and a long-term bucket for growth.
So it's kind of a way to manage risk while ensuring you have liquidity when you need it?
Exactly. It helps you weather market downturns without having to sell investments at a loss.
And what about real estate?
Real estate can be a great income source in retirement, either through rental properties or even selling your home and downsizing. The key here is to ensure it fits into your overall income strategy.
And you can also consider things like reverse mortgages, right?
Yes, but those can be tricky and often misunderstood. They can provide income, but they also reduce the equity in your home. It's important to weigh the pros and cons.
And let's not forget about diversification.
Absolutely. It's crucial to not put all your eggs in one basket, especially in retirement. You want a mix of asset classes to help mitigate risk.
So maybe a blend of stocks, bonds, real estate, and even some alternative investments.
Exactly, and that can vary based on your risk tolerance and time horizon.
And what about tax savings techniques?
Oh, there are several. For instance, tax loss harvesting can help offset capital gains, and strategic withdrawals from tax-advantaged accounts can minimize your tax burden.
So, it's all about being smart with your money and planning ahead.
Yes, and understanding how required minimum distributions, or RMDs, work is also key. Once you hit age 72, you're required to start withdrawing from traditional IRAs and 401ks.
And that can impact your tax situation too.
Definitely. If you're not careful, those withdrawals could push you into a higher tax bracket.
So what's the takeaway here?
Well, the main thing is to create a comprehensive plan that considers all these elements. It's about finding the right balance for your unique situation.
And avoiding common pitfalls.
Exactly. That's a great segue into the next part of our discussion. There are definitely some common mistakes people make when planning for that guaranteed income in retirement.
I can't wait to hear more about those.
So, Emily, as we dive into common pitfalls, one of the biggest mistakes I see is this thing called sequence of returns risk. It's a fancy term, but it simply refers to the order in which your investment returns occur.
Right, and that can really make a difference, can't it? Like, if you experience a couple of bad years right when you retire, it could significantly impact your portfolio's longevity.
Exactly. I've seen retirees who, plan to withdraw a set percentage each year, but when the market takes a downturn early in retirement, they're forced to sell investments at a loss, which can derail their entire plan.
Can you share an example of that?
Sure. I worked with a couple, let's call them John and Mary. They had a solid retirement portfolio, but they retired in 2008, just before the financial crisis. Their plans were to withdraw 4% annually, but with the market crashing, they found themselves in a position where they had to withdraw more to maintain their lifestyle.
Oh no, that's tough.
It really is. They ended up depleting their savings much faster than they anticipated, which left them scrambling in their later years.
So what can people do to avoid that kind of situation?
Well, one strategy is to have a more balanced withdrawal strategy. Maybe using a combination of fixed income and equities, or even keeping a cash reserve for those early years.
That makes sense. It's like having a buffer, right?
Exactly. And speaking of buffers, another common mistake is ignoring taxes when planning withdrawals. Many retirees overlook how much taxes can eat into their income streams.
Oh, definitely. I think a lot of people assume that once they retire, their tax burden will drop, but that's not always the case.
Yes, and I remember working with a woman named Linda. She was excited about her retirement income, but didn't consider her Social Security benefits, and her pension together would push her into a higher tax bracket.
Wow, that's a real eye-opener.
Right? She ended up with less money than she expected after taxes, which, really impacted her lifestyle.
So what should someone do to avoid that?
It's crucial to have a tax strategy in place. This could mean, for example, considering the timing of withdrawals from tax-deferred accounts, or even looking at Roth conversions before retirement.
That's a smart approach.
It is. And then there's the issue of healthcare costs, which many people underestimate.
Ah, yes. Healthcare can be a huge expense in retirement, can't it?
Absolutely. I had a client, let's call him Tom. He had a great retirement plan, but he didn't factor in rising healthcare costs. He figured Medicare would cover most of his needs, but he didn't account for supplemental insurance or out-of-pocket expenses.
That's a big oversight.
It really is. Tom ended up with significant medical bills that he wasn't prepared for, which forced him to dip into his retirement savings more than he planned.
So how can someone prepare for those unexpected healthcare costs?
Well, it's a good idea to research and understand Medicare options and consider long-term care insurance, maybe even setting aside a specific fund just for healthcare.
That sounds like a smart cushion to have.
And then we have poor asset allocation. A lot of retirees stick with what they've always known, like being heavily invested in stocks, even when they're in retirement.
Right. You'd think they'd want to move more towards safer investments as they age.
Exactly. I had a couple, let's call them Bob and Sue. They were quite aggressive with their investments, even in their late 60s. When the market dipped, they lost a significant chunk of their portfolio.
That must have been stressful for them.
It was. They had to rethink their entire strategy. The key is to ensure your asset allocation matches your risk tolerance and income needs as you age.
So regular check-ins on your portfolio are important then.
Absolutely. And then there's the timing of claiming Social Security, which is another area where people can make costly mistakes.
Oh, I've heard about that. A lot of folks claim too early, right?
Yeah, and it can really hurt their benefits. I had a client, Sarah, who claimed at 62 because she thought she needed the income. But if she had waited until 70, her benefits would have increased by about 76%.
That's a massive difference.
It really is. And once you start taking Social Security, you can't go back and change that decision later.
So what should people consider when deciding when to claim?
Well, they should evaluate their financial situation, health, and how long they expect to live. You know, it's a personal decision, but there are calculators and resources that can help guide that choice.
It's all about planning ahead, isn't it?
Exactly. The earlier you start thinking about these factors, the better prepared you'll be for a smooth retirement.
So what would you suggest as next steps for someone who's listening and feeling a bit overwhelmed by all this?
First, they should take a step back and assess their current financial situation. Maybe consult with a financial advisor to review their withdrawal strategies, tax implications, and healthcare planning.
That sounds like a solid plan.
And, encourage them to keep learning about retirement planning. It's a journey, not a destination.
Absolutely. There's always more to learn, and being proactive can really make a difference.
Definitely. And by addressing these common pitfalls early, they can set themselves up for a more secure and enjoyable retirement.
Well, that's encouraging. Let's dive into what those next steps could look like.
All right, so let's dive into some immediate steps folks can take to create that guaranteed income in retirement.
Yes, that sounds great. It's so important to feel empowered to take action, right?
Absolutely. One of the first things I'd recommend is to check out some retirement calculators. Vanguard, Fidelity, and Schwab all have great tools. They can help you estimate how much you'll need and what your income might look like in retirement.
Those calculators are super handy. They really help you visualize your goals.
Right? And don't forget about the Social Security Administration's website, ssa.gov. You can find your estimated benefits there, which is crucial for your planning.
Oh, definitely. Knowing what to expect from Social Security can really shape your overall strategy.
Exactly. And if you haven't already, consider using tax software like TurboTax or H&R Block to get a better understanding of your tax situation in retirement.
That's a good point. Taxes can be a big factor in your retirement income.
They can, and understanding how your income will be taxed is key. Also, there are financial planning apps like Mint or Personal Capital that can really help you track your spending and savings.
Those apps are great for keeping everything in one place. It makes it so much easier to manage.
Yes, and if you're feeling adventurous, maybe check out some podcasts or books focused on retirement planning. The Retirement Answer book by Harold Avensky is a classic.
I love that one. It's so thorough. Any other recommendations?
How to Retire Happy, Wild, and Free by Ernie J. Zielinski is another fantastic read. It focuses not just on the financial side, but also on how to enjoy your retirement years.
That's important. It's all about finding that balance, right?
Exactly. And for those who prefer listening, the Retirement Show podcast has some great insights too.
Love it. So what about habits? Are there any small changes people can start making right now?
Definitely. One habit I suggest is to review your portfolio quarterly. Just check in on how your investments are performing and if they align with your goals.
That's a simple but effective way to stay on track.
And while you're at it, run some retirement projections. You can use those calculators we mentioned earlier to see if you're on pace to meet your income needs.
I think a lot of folks might overlook that. It's easy to put off, but it can really make a difference.
It can. And don't be afraid to adjust your plan as needed. It's never too late to improve your strategy.
Absolutely. Even if someone is nearing retirement, small adjustments can lead to big benefits down the road.
Exactly. And consider setting aside some time each month to educate yourself about investment options, annuities, or other income-generating strategies.
That's a great idea. Education is empowering, and the more you know, the better decisions you can make.
Right. And remember, it's about creating a plan that feels right for you. So take the time to explore what fits your lifestyle and needs.
For sure. It's all about personalization, and these steps can help you build confidence in your financial future.
So those are some practical first steps. Now let's bring this all together. Well, Emily, as we wrap up this episode, Let's quickly recap some key takeaways about creating guaranteed income in retirement.
Absolutely, David. So, first off, we talked about the importance of understanding your income sources, right? Knowing what you have, like Social Security, pensions, or annuities, can really help you plan effectively.
Exactly. And then there's the idea of diversifying those income streams. It's not just about one source. It's about having a mix that can support you through different market conditions.
Right, and we also highlighted the significance of budgeting. Knowing how much you'll need each month can really ease stress and help you set realistic expectations.
And let's not forget about the role of inflation. Planning for it means your purchasing power won't dwindle over time, which is crucial for long-term stability.
It sure is. And finally, we touched on the value of working with a financial advisor. They can help tailor a strategy that fits your unique situation.
You know, building and protecting your retirement wealth is a journey, not a sprint. It's about making informed decisions today that will pay off tomorrow.
Exactly. So if you found this episode helpful, we'd love for you to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or your biggest takeaway from today, drop those in the comments.
And don't forget to share this episode with someone who's planning for or already in retirement. You never know who might benefit from this information.
Yes. And next time, we'll dive into how to reduce investment fees in retirement. It's going to be a great discussion, so stay tuned.
Looking forward to it. Until then, take care and keep planning for a bright retirement future.
Bye, everyone.